A very wonderful day to you out there. In this segment of Bridging the Gap Societal Issues, we want to look at a very disturbing issue in the Nigerian society today, and that is the issue of kidnapping and the impact of this on mental health of families and loved ones left behind after each issue of kidnapping. We'll be right back with details after this break. Welcome back. Now, with me tonight, I have a very wonderful friend and someone who feels the pain. She may not be a mother, but she has families, she has nephews, she has nieces, she has loved ones that she feels very uncomfortable, very burdened. And she asks herself, what if she was in this situation? So with me tonight, I have Cassie Tony. Welcome. Nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Emerald. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, you're very welcome. Now we want to go into it. Mental health issues bothers on a whole lot about the person. And when we talk about kidnapping, the prevailing situation in Nigeria today, what would you like to say about that?
Okay, so when we talk about kidnapping and the issues pressing us in our society today, first off, we need to actually know what mental health is. Mental health is the emotional, the psychological, and then the social well-being that actually dictates how we feel, how we act, how we respond to things.
The totality of a person.
Sometimes it actually shapes our emotions. It shapes how we react to things. And then bringing in this kidnapping that is taking over the society, it has a lot of psychological effect on families, even on the victims as well. And some of this psychological effect that it actually have on the families and the victims is chronic anxiety and fear. Sometimes the victims, they'll stay, and if they actually gain their freedom, sometimes they stay and they start fidgeting without anyone actually, talking to them, or sometimes something just trigger the fear. They can just be on their own, and before you know it, they start fidgeting. That's the fear. That's the anxiety of what they've been through in the hands of their captive. They can even hear footsteps and they become afraid. Even at night, that trauma is still affecting them. They still feel fear. And then we also have emotional trauma and distress. Threats of calls, the victims having to call the family members, demanding for ransom. Sometimes they threatened even the victims that if you don't make this payment, you'll not get to see your family member, we'll kill your family, we'll do this.
Now, Cassie, I noticed that most times attention is actually more on the victims
than the family
themselves. Now, the real thing is, what happens to the people that they leave behind? We have children involved, we have parents involved, we have siblings involved, especially the immediate family. What happens? I know that the recent ones, that you and I know about, the kidnapping of the children. You have children. 2 years.
Yes.
We actually saw a 2-year-old lying on a bare floor, and then I don't know if it's that same kid that died. Some time after. And then we have pictures or video of a man who was brutally beheaded. What do you think will happen to either a wife or a husband seeing this kind of thing, a mother, especially a mother, seeing this kind of thing on screen?
That's the trauma that we're actually talking about. This trauma stick with the family members for life. It remains with them for life. And when they watch the video because for that man to be beheaded, the video has been circulating online. And there's no way that video will not keep popping up. And Even if the video doesn't pop up, that image will keep popping up, because it's just like a reflection. When you watch horror movie, and after watching the movie,
the image stays
with you
after a while.
But this one, I don't think it's something that will stay after a while. It's something that will live with you for life.
You're watching someone that you've lived with. You're watching someone that you've laid on the same bed with. You're watching a child that you have nurtured, you have breastfed, and watching your baby lying on the bare floor. It's something, I don't know how it is.
It is very traumatizing, because that man that was beheaded, like I said, the stigma will stay with the family. It should not go away. Perhaps he has a wife and then he has children, and it will stay with the wife. It will affect the children more. If the man has children and then the children get to see how their father was killed, it will stay with the children for life. They will be traumatized. In fact, they will lose interest in so many things. Sometimes they can even become violent, because they've seen how their father was killed. They will want to carry out revenge. They want to revenge. Revenge our father's death. So it sticks. They become traumatized.
Yeah, that is a good point, because even in a normal setting, well, not normal, when you have kids actually witness violence in the home,
they take it out.
Yes, of course, they take it out. The man believes it's a normal thing to beat his wife, which we're definitely going to come back with another one for some other time. The child feels it's normal
to be bullied.
The child feels every negative thing is normal. It's the same thing happening in the society. Now, going back, you mentioned that this picture will stay in a child's mind. It's even more dangerous with a child,
Yes.
Because the child grows up and try to find answers. What happened? And then you find this child joining the same thing to continue.
Exactly.
At what point do you think we should break the circle?
We have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yes.
Sometimes they need to see a psychologist for counseling, because if they don't see psychologists, that PTSD, that trauma will stick with them. So they'll need to see a psychologist, they need to see a counselor to talk to them, to try to get that memory off their brain. And if they don't find who to talk to, it will stick with them, it will stay with them, and they will want to carry out the revenge. So it is very much advisable that they see a counselor and a psychologist to talk them out of that trauma.
But Cassie, when you talk about seeing a psychologist for a 2-year-old, well, for a 5-year-old, what does a 5-year-old understand? Now,
they understand a lot.
Children tend to react differently from adults,
Yeah.
So how would a 2-year-old be able to assimilate all of the psychological things?
I'm telling you that children know. Children know what happens. Is like when there's a violence at home, the domestic violence, the father is being violent on the wife or the mother is being violent on the father, or the parents are treating the child in a bad way. That it stays with them. Children don't forget things easily.
No, they don't.
So it stays with them.
They
for that child,
learn what you do.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So that picture, that image will still be with that child. That child will be able to explain that this is what happened and this is what did not happen. So they know exactly what to do, what to say at every time. So children are very sensitive. That's why sometimes it's not advisable that you do something bad in the presence of children.
Yes. Wow. That's I remember vividly in one of those stories again, not just about now. This kidnapping thing is not only in the north as we had.
It has even spread to the southwest.
Almost like everybody. Let me ask you a personal question, Cassie. How do you feel about this thing? We heard this morning that there was attack in
Kogi State.
Yeah, Kogi State,
and in Edo State.
This is coming. So what can we make out of it? How do you feel, first of all?
To be honest, I feel very scared sometimes. And I have to even be very conscious of my time. Because we all know that the country is no longer safe. It's no longer the time that you stay till 12 midnight outside. Unlike before, you can stay till past 12 midnight and you're sure of your safety.
Yeah.
But nowadays, you cannot even at 7 p.m., you're even scared. That
even at 6:30.
Exactly.
I
So
see people running to get home.
you have to be very conscious of your time. And even travelers don't want to embark on night journey. So me personally, I am very conscious of my time. I'm very conscious of what I do. I ensure that I finish everything that I do and I get home before nightfall, so I don't start having that experience. Judging by the event that happened in Kogi State yesterday,
Yeah.
where schools were attacked, it's like this bandits and these terrorists, they are not targeting school children.
What is their interest, Cassie?
Exactly.
What is their interest in targeting schools?
Exactly.
These kids know nothing about politics. They're not interested. I don't think there's any political campaign happening in schools. Now, what would be the interest?
Why would they even drag the children into
this?
And I don't think it's just about politics. It's not about politics alone. It's not politics alone. There's more to it that we do not know. There's more to this thing that is happening that we don't even know about. So it's not just about politics. There's more. Because why would they be targeting school children that are writing WAEC? Why would they target schools? Why not go for the politicians? If at all is politics, why not go for politicians? So I feel there is more to it. Maybe the rumors of they want Sharia law.
Man.
So perhaps they are doing all these things to ensure that they get their Sharia law implemented.
But there is what we call freedom of worship, freedom of religion. All right, Cassie, we'll be right back. Just hold that thought. It's really getting emotional. Hello there. I mean, I don't know how you feel about all this, but we're going to continue because it's really getting emotional here. We'll continue right after the break. All right, welcome back. Now, the question is, how do we deal with all of this afterwards? We discover that victims are released. We hear about victims being released. What happens to them afterwards? What is the life after this kidnapping experience? What do you think will be? I mean, I don't know.
Well, life after kidnapping, like I mentioned earlier, that the victims have to see psychologists. They need counseling to counsel them out of that trauma, out of that emotions, because something that they've experienced, if they do not see a psychologist, if they don't go for counseling, the nightmares will keep occurring. They'll keep having anxieties. They'll keep having PTSD, trauma. They'll keep, having fears.
Guilt.
Yes, that's
what if
emotional stigma. Yes, that stigma will stay with them. So they need to see a psychologist. It's not just about you've gained your freedom. The possibility of I've gained is like, let me put it this way, you're being raped.
Exactly. As
a victim of rape.
As a victim of rape. It's much more difficult,
Exactly.
It's much more difficult.
You need to see a psychologist to, wash away that mentality, that experience.
You think it will be completely washed?
You know that it's not completely washed, but at least 75% of the job will really be done on you, that, you're getting yourself back. Just like, rather than you staying without getting any help. So you need help to actually wash that mentality, wash that picture, erase it entirely from your head.
Well,
it may not go totally, but 95 or 75% of the job needs to be done on
now
you.
I know one of the key effects of this whole mess is panic attack.
Yeah.
Now, if you know what panic attack is something that nobody wants to experience, because each time the nightmare comes, even if you're sleeping, you jack up,
yes,
and it's as if you're going to fly out thinking you're dead. So now, how do we relate this with children? Because honestly, yes, I feel for the adult, but the kids, these innocent children, How do we deal with it with them? How do we get them to return to normal life? Apart from the therapy, I believe that so much love should be shown to these people. Okay, so much, everyone around there, because already society may
want to write them off.
Yes, go through. They've gone through so much, and they need love. What do you think?
Exactly, they need love. But in our world today, who is ready to show love? Even among peers, you can hardly get love from your friends as a normal being.
The rape cases.
Yes, as a normal being. Then talk more when you're a victim of rape or you're a victim of kidnapping, and then you come out, getting the possibility of you getting love from friends is not guaranteed. But then you can actually get love from family, because that's your family, so they will show you a lot of love, they'll show you so much attention. But then from friends and then community or society is really not guaranteed, because definitely they'll want to use it against you at some point.
Now, talking about community, each and every one of us, we come out from communities. We belong to a community. How can the community specifically help in situations like this?
It's very simple. Showing emotional support, avoiding gossip.
Some of them tend to lose their personal things. How do they get back to life? How do they function properly? Because even I may not be far from the truth to say that some organizations may not even want to employ them back into the society. So how can the community really help?
So offer practical assistance, maybe give them one or two assistants, like
set them up in business,
offer them some kind of training, just ask them what they really want to do, and then you set them up. But then you have to look at
there's always
the negative aspect of it, because it's not everyone that will want to help. Some will complain that this economy, that.
It is not enough for the government to just go visit them and just say one or two things to them.
They need to set them up.
Yes. We can. It won't be. I don't think it will be a difficult thing. Okay, if some of them have already probably engaged like farmers, see how we can help them to give them equipment and good equipment, and all that. Or if they were engaged in one vocational skill or the other, how they can rise them up.
Same treatment they actually give to this repentant and bandit, that they send them for training, some kind of training, and then at the end of the day they set them up. They should do it the same thing to
when you say repentant bandits, they really do.
But that's the modernized English that they use. They call them repentant and bandit. So the same treatment they give to them, they offer them, all these militants that said, I've repented. The government set them up, train them, send them for training, and then set them up occupationally. They should do the same to these victims.
When they come out. What you just said now, let me take you back a little bit. Now, when you say setting them up, the repentant bandits and everything, how do you think the families or the victims, when seeing this kind of ventures done for them, how do you think they will feel? This is the person that raped me. When I
was talking about the repentant bandits, I said the same treatment that they give to this repentant bandits, they should also give it to the victims. Because, like they said, repentant bandits, they train them up, they set them up, give them finance to go start up a business. That's how they treat these people, these militants that they say, they've repented, they've surrendered their ammunition and the rest. So they send them for occupational training. The same way they do to this, the same thing that they actually do to these people, they should do it to the victims too. When those victims come back from their captivity, they should train them, give them occupational training. Some of them want to learn hairstyling, makeup, whatever occupation that they want to do, set them up. Because I know that in our society today, a lot of organizations would not want to employ such people.
Yeah.
So rather than leaving them to their fate for them to wallow, because when you leave them, they'll want to do what is worst. They want to revenge. They want to be misled. That trauma, that stigma will remain with them. So rather than leaving them that way, you provide solution. Give them something to keep them busy, to take their mind off that ugly situation. Show them love. Support them emotionally, physically, financially, otherwise. Every support that can get, the federal government, the communities, every state have the capacity to actually do that.
Even NGOs can come in, non-governmental organizations.
But the NGOs cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
Because the finances may not really be there.
We need all the support. These people need all the support that they can get. Thank you, Cassie Tony, for being with me today. Thank you so much. So what would be your last word?
Well, my last word is we should just watch our back. Be each other's neighbor. Watch your neighbor's back. Care for each other. When these people go and come back, all they need is our love. Don't reject them. Don't make them feel worst of a person that they are.
Yeah.
Show them all the love they can actually show them.
Yeah.
And make them as comfortable as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And to you out there, I just want to say, please take good care of yourselves. Mental health issues and kidnapping is getting even more common by the day. Now, what would you do if this happens to you? Let's pray it doesn't happen to you out there. But please, let us try to be there for each other. Let us try to make these people, these victims, and the families of this victim feel that they are loved. Thank you so much for being with us today. Same time, next time. See you again. My name is Emerald Onufe. Bye.